Alright, so the mortar's changed in this update. In my personal opinion, the mortar did not need a change, but they've changed the mortar, so yeah. The first thing to note is that its placement limit has been increased from 4 to 5. So its placement cost has decreased from 1,000 to 900. Meanwhile, its damage has actually remained the same, and its fire rate has actually decreased from 5 to 4. Its range has, though, decreased from 22 to 20, which I can actually detect that, the range decrease. But to compensate, the explosion range has increased from 5 to 6. Therefore, its DPS has increased from 2.4 to 2.9. Cost efficiency has therefore decreased from 416 to 301, bearing in mind lower cost efficiency is better. Therefore, the mortar is buffed at level 0, even though compensating for the loss of range. But you do get one more mortar, and it's an explosive tower, so theoretically it can hit multiple enemies. So a cost efficiency of about 300 for an explosive tower is quite good. Now, obviously, if it's like a normal boss, for example, it's not as good as that. But on hordes, definitely, if it just even hits more than like 2 enemies, the mortar, very good indeed. Moving on to level 1 now. It costs $325. This is actually a decrease from the $600 that it was before, and this is a total cost decrease. Total price decrease from the 1,600 at this level to 1,225 at this level. The damage remains the same at 12. The fire rate has decreased from 4.5 to 3. However, the most major thing here is the range has has actually decreased from 24 to 20. There is no range increase at this level, and there's no range upgrade at this level. Everything else remains the same. So the cost of so the DPS at this level has increased from 2.66 to 3.99. So therefore, the cost efficiency has basically halved from 601, which was terrible before, to 307. So its cost efficiency is like comparable to level 0 now. But that's compensating for the loss of range, and 24 range, it's like, yeah, you're losing like 20% of its range for the fact that its DPS is alright. I don't know. The fact is, this level is more like a buffer thing, so like I would have preferred more range, but then again, you are getting more DPS. So can we really complain? Yeah. Oh, and yeah, you still get flying and lead. I mean, obviously it's a mortar tower. I mean, it would be very surprising if it couldn't damage lead or flying. It would have been through glitches though. Meanwhile, at level 2, the upgrade cost for this has actually increased from 1,300 to 1,400, but overall, because of the total price decreases at the previous levels, it's decreased overall from 2,900 to 2,625 in total cost. At this level though, we do get the 24 range back. So when I dissed the range of the mortar before, yeah, just forget what I said. We get 24 damage at this level. The fire rate has decreased from 4 to 3 at this level, and the explosion range has increased from 6.5 to 7.5. Therefore, the DPS has increased from 5.99 to 7.98. So the cost efficiency has decreased from 484 to 328. So, like, this is unequivocally a buff. Like, there's no like downsides to this. Like, there's a big explosion range. There's like similar range. There's like better fire rate. There's same damage. Like, it's a buff. And there's one more mortar. Like, you can spam the. I won't spam the mortar, but it's like the mortar back in the day. You know, back in the day when the mortar had like a tower limit of 5. I wouldn't say it's like as OP as it was back then, because I think the mortar back then could see hidden. I could be wrong, but back then I think the mortar could see hidden. Moving on to level 3, the upgrade price has increased from 3,200 to 3,500, and this is the first time where the total price has increased slightly by $25. Now, if I were you, I wouldn't complain about $25. $25, like, what can that get you in this economy? Like, what, a Big Mac, if even? Like, I wouldn't complain. Anyways, at this level, there is actually a nerf to the damage, so the damage has decreased from 55 to 50. However, the fire rate has decreased from 4 to 3. The range has decreased slightly from 28 to 27. However, the explosion radius has increased from 6.5 to 8.5, so it's much bigger explosion. So back in the day, you might remember the mortar had a much larger explosion range, but that was nerfed because Below Natural didn't want it to be an explosive sniper. Well, it's not an explosive sniper because it doesn't have like the range of a sniper, but it is explosive now. Like, you can evidently see it is quite a large explosion range. Like, I understand the nerf to the damage now. Like, I'd happily take the nerf to the damage for a much larger, like, the explosion range is massive. Like, it is genuinely big. Plus, you get another mortar. So, like, yes, you get 5 less damage, but it's good. So, like, yeah, the DPS, even though yeah, there's been like a decrease in damage, the DPS has actually increased from 13.72 to 16.62. So the cost efficiency has decreased from 444 to 368.53. Moving on to level 4 now. So the price here, it's increased from 8,500 to 10,000. So yeah, at this level, prices do evidently tick up. So the total cost has increased from 14,600 to 16,125. The damage, normal damage, has decreased from 125 to 120. Woe be me, you lost 5 damage from 125. Meanwhile, they've increased the cluster bomb. What? Why have they increased the amount of cluster bombs? So they've increased the amount of cluster bombs from 3 to 4. So actually, there's not been enough to damage. Yeah, because the amount of cluster bombs, it's the amount of damage they do, it's increased from 120 to 160. So no, there's not been a decrease in damage. Wow. The fire rate has still decreased from 3.5 to 3. The range has still decreased from 30 to 27. The explosion radius has increased from 6.5 to 8.5. Meanwhile, the cluster bombs have increased radius from 4 to 5. So overall, the mortar has a DPS. Has increased DPS from 69.84 before, which was pretty good, to 93.08, which is incredible for an explosive tower, I must say. Like, so the cost efficiency has gone from 209.04, which was incredible for an explosive tower, to 173.23. That's like, I mean, yes, that's not as good as a buff as it was on previous levels, but it's still good. Why have you buffed the mortar? The mortar was good before. Like, maybe it was a little underused. It was a bit underrated for what it was, but the mortar is good. And now I can see the mortar becoming like one of the meta towers. Like, bro, this is an explosive. It's like it covers a load of area. It's the area that it covers is massive. You could cover Tokyo with this. I probably shouldn't mention Japan, and yeah, you know, fair enough. I mean, obviously, the main downside for the mortar, it can't see hiddens. So, yes, there is a downside to using the mortar, which is fair enough. Fair enough. You're going to have to bring something else, and it's not a tower that you can rely on. So, you know what? Mortar, a bad tower. Can't see hiddens. Just bring the fucking ace pilot or something, you know? Finally, level 5. Its cost has increased from 20,000 to 22,500. Therefore, its total cost has increased from 34,600 to 38,625. To be fair, that's not like in terms of percentage-wise, that's not too much. Here, the range hasn't actually changed at all. It's at 30. The damage has actually been nerfed a fair bit, actually, 250 to 200. However, the cluster bombs have actually compensated for this. It's the damage has increased from 50 to 75. What? So, and the amount of cluster bombs has increased from 3 to 6. So you can evidently see this. The amount of cluster bombs that it spawns in is quite a lot. You can see amount of cluster bombs. Now, I'll totally honest with you. It's not a fair thing to compare the DPS of the mortar to, say, like, other explosive towers, because, like, the cluster bombs, because of the way that they spread out, all the cluster bombs won't deal the same damage to, like, one enemy. So, like, the DPS for the mortar, it's not accurate to the point where, yeah, it's a bit misleading. I would say that if, in terms of direct one-on-one enemy comparison, it's suggesting that it deals more DPS than it actually does. But for the fact that, yeah, you can evidently see it deals with hordes very, very, very well. Like, Jesus Christ, it is extremely well for hordes if there's not a hidden in there. I mean, even if there was a hidden in there, it probably deal with it pretty well. And, like, you just get something that can detect hiddens to mop up the thing, because, like, yeah, you just saw the hidden boss get cleared up very easily there. Anyways, in other news, the fire rate has decreased from 3.5 to 3. The explosion radius has increased from 8 to 10. So yes, I am right. The explosion radius has been increased massively, so it can even hit, like, the fast enemies pretty well. Sorry, its range has actually been nerfed from 35 to 30. I did make a mistake there. To be fair, I'd take that any day. So, like, yes, it's less of an explosive sniper. It's not an explosive sniper, but it's explosive nevertheless. The cluster bomb's explosion range has increased from 4 to 5. So get ready for this. The DPS of the mortar has increased from 114 to 216. An explosive tower with a DPS of over 200. My god. So the cost efficiency of the mortar has decreased from 303 to 178. For context, the minigunner does not get as high as a DPS as the mortar. And like, yeah, it doesn't see hidden. So yeah, that's the one downfall of the mortar. You're gonna have to get other things for that. But like, come on, the mortar, right? Just on its own, hitting only one enemy, deals nearly as much DPS as the fucking golden minigunner. That is insane. I mean, like, yeah, again, cluster bombs. But it's an explosive tower. It shouldn't have this much DPS. Like, it shouldn't be, like, yeah, it has a placement limit of 5 as well, and while the golden minigun has a placement limit of, what, 12? Like, okay, yeah, fair enough. But, like, the mortar, it was good before. It's excellent, / like, bordering, like, one of the best towers now. Well, I mean, we can't see hiddens. But, neither can the ranger, and people use the ranger. So, you know what? I think this is a good tower. Although, to be fair, you do unlock it at level 75. So, you know what? Maybe it's fair for the mortar for it to be good. So, yeah. The mortar, certified good in my books. To be fair, I am a mortar fanboy. So, you know what? Fair enough.